He stole the 10 million on our 10th anniversary, the final wire hitting the Caymans at 9:47 p.m. while the string quartet was still playing the song we danced to at our wedding, while 400 guests lifted their glasses to the perfect couple, while I smiled across the candlelight and tasted metal in the champagne. I did not scream. I did not slap him. I excused myself to the powder room, locked the door, opened the hidden partition in my clutch, attached the 212-page forensic audit that mapped every ghost vendor, every falsified grant, every offshore hop from the Caymans to the BVI to Liechtenstein, and pressed send to 312 people whose names he kissed goodnight. By the time I returned to the terrace and touched my flute to his, the first push notifications were already lighting up phones across Manhattan. By the time the quartet finished the final note, his reputation was bleeding out on the marble floor faster than the sommelier could pour the next round. That was only the first paragraph of my revenge. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the roof of our penthouse wrapped in cashmere and watched the city glitter like broken glass while Irv fielded frantic calls from board members who suddenly remembered they had ethics clauses. He kept asking me if I knew why the Times was calling at 2 in the morning, and I kept refilling his whiskey and saying, "Darling, I'm sure it's nothing you can't fix." By dawn he had lawyered up, by noon the foundation's accounts were frozen, by dusk the first donor had publicly demanded his money back, and I was already 3 moves ahead. I had hired a ghost, no name, only a string of numbers and a wallet address, and paid him in Bitcoin split across 17 tumbling services. 72 hours later he slid a 4.9 gigabyte file into an encrypted drop, and I opened it on a laptop that had never been connected to our home network. Inside was the second life my husband had built with the futures of trafficked girls and battered wives. A Brickell Key penthouse titled to a Delaware LC that traced back to a grant we had written for a shelter in Mumbai. A Sonoma vineyard hidden behind a trust named Camellia after his dead mother. A Monegasque passport in the name Adrian Laurent with residency in Fontvieille and a biometric chip that still worked at the border. And more than 1,300 photographs of a woman named Gia Rossi, 29, Italian, legs that went on forever, wearing a diamond I had personally chosen for a 17-year-old survivor who had acid thrown on her face for refusing marriage. Gia thought she was engaged to a French philanthropist who traveled constantly for women's causes. She posted sunsets from the vineyard on an Instagram account with 1.2 million followers and captioned them things like, "Building a legacy of light." I stared at those pictures until my eyes burned, then closed the laptop and began lighting matches. I started with Monaco. I crafted an anonymous tip so perfect it looked like it came from a jealous Russian who had lost a yacht in the same marina. I attached the Monegasque passport, bank records linking Adrian Laurent to Coral Reef Holdings, and a forged but flawless ledger showing he had shorted humanitarian bonds right before the refugee crisis spiked the price. I routed it through servers in Estonia, Seychelles, and a university in Reykjavik that still thought it was hosting a climate research mirror. 41 hours later Monaco police knocked on the Fontvieille apartment and found no one home, but the passport photo was on every wire by dinner, and Interpol had a red notice before Irv finished his second martini. He still didn't know Adrian Laurent was him. He thought some identity thief had stolen his face. I let him believe that for exactly 6 more days. Next I went for Gia. Her family in Milan was old money, Catholic and viciously protective of bloodlines. I mailed them physical mail, cream envelope, no return address. A single USB drive containing 287 photographs of their daughter naked on my husband's yacht flying a Cayman flag, plus bank transfers showing the yacht had been purchased with a grant meant for rape crisis counselors in Lagos. I included a polite note in Italian, "Your daughter deserves to know who pays for her diamonds." The Rossi private jet left Milan at 4:12 a.m. and landed in Miami at 7:03. Gia was on it, hysterical, escorted by 2 uncles who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. By noon the Brickell penthouse was empty, the diamond returned by courier to the foundation with a note that simply read, "Me despias." Irv came home that night and found the walk-in closet half empty and lipstick on the mirror that said "ADO" in Gia's dramatic handwriting. He called me from the bedroom, voice cracking, asking if I knew why his friend had vanished. I was in the kitchen making chamomile tea and told him sometimes people just need space. I sipped slowly. It tasted like victory. Then I found his sister. Lila Sterling lived in a double-wide outside Dayton, Ohio, and had not spoken to Irv in 14 years except to cash the quarterly wire transfers that kept her quiet about the fire he set in their childhood home when he was 12, the one that almost killed their father. I flew commercial, wore a baseball cap and no makeup, and knocked on her door with a bottle of grocery store wine and a thumb drive. She let me in because I looked like someone who had also been burned. I showed her where every dollar of her hush money had come from. The same foundation that was supposed to buy bulletproof vests for female journalists in Juarez. She cried so hard the mascara ran into her mouth. Then she spent the next 9 hours recording testimony on my phone. Every lie, every threat, every time he told her she was trash who would never amount to anything. When we finished, she asked if she could keep the wine. I told her she could keep her soul back. She hugged me like a drowning woman hugs driftwood. With Lila's testimony sealed in an envelope addressed to the U.S. Attorney's Office, delivery scheduled for the exact day Irv's lawyers filed their first motion to dismiss, I turned to money. Real money. The kind that makes lawyers salivate and men sell their grandmothers. The ghost gave me the keys to every account Irv thought was hidden. The Caymans, the BVI, a credit union in Vanuatu that still used fax machines. At 3:07 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday, I executed a series of perfectly legal but perfectly timed holds. Maintenance windows, compliance reviews, suspicious activity flags triggered by algorithms I had paid to wake up cranky. $189 million froze across 11 jurisdictions for exactly 11 days. Long enough for the interest to compound into 7 figures of legal fees, short enough that no judge would call it malicious. Irv's lead counsel called him in the middle of the night and explained that unless they posted a $10 million retainer by sunrise, the firm was off the case. He sold the Sonoma vineyard to a private equity vulture for 38 cents on the dollar. The closing happened so fast the realtor still had the open house rose in the fridge. I bought the first bottle produced under new ownership and toasted the vines alone at sunset. The wine tasted like tears and justice. While his lawyers scrambled, I fed the prosecution. Not everything, just enough. A single page here, a redacted transfer there, always from a different burner, always timed to land right before a hearing so his defense looked like it was chasing ghosts. Every motion they filed was already dead on arrival. Every witness they prepped suddenly remembered a detail that damned them. The prosecutor, a woman who had once asked me for a grant to fund a safe house in Queens, started calling me my guardian angel in private. I never admitted anything. I just kept showing up to hearings in the back row wearing sunglasses and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. 18 months after the anniversary toast, the jury took 4 hours to convict on all 41 counts. Restitution was ordered at $211 million, an amount calculated to the penny by the same forensic accountant who had once done our taxes. The judge denied bail. Irv stood in the defendant's box looking suddenly small, like someone had let the air out of him. The cameras caught the exact moment he realized the woman in the back row, me, was not there to comfort him. I was there to watch him fall. I never went to the sentencing. I was 3,000 miles away on the porch of the new sanctuary I had built with every dollar clawed back from his accounts. It sits on 20 acres in upstate New York, wrapped in sugar maples and silence. We named it Camellia House, after his mother, because irony is its own kind of poetry. On the day the judge read the final order, life supervision, electronic monitoring, permanent disbarment from any board or charity, a young woman with a black eye and a garbage bag of belongings stood in the garden and planted the first rosemary bush. The news alert chimed on my phone. I did not cheer. I did not cry. I only knelt beside her, pressed the dirt around the roots with my bare hands and whispered, "This will grow stronger than anything that tried to kill it." She looked at me with eyes that had seen the same dark I once lived in and asked my name. I told her Elena, just Elena, and for the first time in 10 years that was the entire truth. Irv lives now in a monitored apartment in White Plains that smells of microwave curry and failure. His ankle bracelet beeps if he walks more than 200 yards from the front door. He spends his days Googling his own name and watching the headlines cycle through fresh horrors. Another victim, another lawsuit, another donor demanding blood. The foundation thrives without him, actually thrives bigger than ever because people love a resurrection story. Gia married a count in Tuscany and deleted every trace of her American past. Lila wrote a memoir that spent 31 weeks on the bestseller list. And every spring when the rosemary at Camellia House blooms purple and fierce, I walk the gravel paths at dawn and breathe it in until my lungs ache with the scent of survival. He thought he stole $10 million in a decade of my life. He was wrong. He only paid the down payment. The final price was everything he was. And I, Elena Sterling, am finally, unapologetically free.